Gentlemen, welcome to the 2019 annual meeting of the Hollis School District. My name is Drew Mason and I am the district moderator. I call this meeting to order. I invite all who are able to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would invite people to remain standing for our national anthem. Adrian Rosenblatt, Megan Warren, Alex DiTrolio, Ronan Finnegan, Tyler Wu, Mohid Khan, Matthias Olson, Avery Whitehead, Vasilisa Glebova, and directed by Adam Wallace. I invite all serving members of our armed forces and all veterans to stand and be recognized. Thank you for your service. Mr. Mann will introduce the school board.
Mr. Moderator, I'd like to introduce members of the school board. Tammy Fareed is our vice chairman. We have Amy Kellner is our secretary. And we have Tom Enright with us that I'd like to recognize as he's moving on from the service of the school board. Tom has served our schools in many forms, in one form or another. I've been recently told almost 3 decades of service, whether he's serving in the co-op district or on the co-op budget committee, which he's currently serving now, and of course on the Hollis School Board. His extensive experience and his sharp legal perspective has been very valuable to this district. And Tom, best of luck with your future endeavors. And on behalf of the Hollis School District, thank you for your service.
Tom Guillen will introduce the budget committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'm Tom Guillen, chair of the budget committee. Budget committee is seated to my left, your right, Mike Harris, Chris Hyde, Tom Jambard, Darlene Mann, Mike Levitt, Tammy Fareed is an ex officio member of the BudCom from the school board, and Mark Ledoux represents the selectmen. He isn't with us this evening. Thank you.
Superintendent Corey will introduce members of the staff and the school administration.
Gina Bergskog, Assistant Superintendent. Amy Rowe, Assistant Superintendent. Kelly Seeley, Business Administrator. Kristen Ma, Assistant Business Administrator. Rich Raymond, Network Administrator. Candace Fowler, Principal of Hughes. Paula Isbicki, Principal of HPS. Colleen Mikovich is our Special Education Coordinator. And Nicole Tomaselli is our Curriculum Coordinator. Thank you.
Helping me tonight is Diane Levitt, District Clerk, and James O'Shaughnessy, who is District Counsel. In addition, I have Assistant Moderator Jim Belanger, and Melinda Willis may be joining us later. And if we have stuff to count, then the assistant may well tap some people to help. We are here tonight to discuss and act on the subjects brought forward on the warrant by the school board. To do so effectively, we need rules which provide order and structure to the business of the meeting. Rules must be set for each meeting so folks understand how to get things done. I will propose a set of rules and then ask the voters to adopt them. Once adopted, it takes a 2/3 vote to change. As a reminder, Robert's Rules is only a guide. They do not control how this meeting is run. You can find a copy of my rules in your town report on page 194 in the yellow section. I know that's the co-op section of the report, but I wanted to save a few trees by putting them where both districts can find them. In the next few slides, I will touch on just a few points. If you wish to speak, come up to the microphone, show your voting card. Please wait to be recognized. This gym is not designed as a meeting hall, so sometimes it is difficult to hear. Announce your name and address clearly so the clerk can hear it. Your time is limited to 3 minutes and cannot be yielded or transferred. For the Hollis School District, I allow 3 minutes, although in the co-op rules, they only say 2. By prior arrangement, presentations can be up to 10 minutes. Other than the school board and the budget committee, we don't have any prepared presentations. When you get close to your time limit, I will give you a signal. When you're out of time, I will give you a second signal. Be germane, and if possible, be brief. Avoid repeating points that have already been made. Above all, be courteous. It is possible to disagree without being disagreeable. Disruptive behavior or personal attacks are out of line, out of bounds, and out of order. A motion to reconsider is useful and appropriate if new information comes to light or spending approaches the 10% rule limit. It allows the voters to discuss a matter further and vote again. The motion can only be made by a person who voted on the prevailing side. It is debatable and requires a simple majority to pass. Allowing debate on a motion to reconsider is a change from the printed rules. A motion to restrict reconsideration does not block reconsideration of a previous motion or article. If passed, it requires that any subsequent reconsideration of the vote cannot occur for at least 7 days. The motion is not debatable and is in order at any time that the voter has the floor. We have a newly redesigned ballot. I don't claim the format to be perfect, but I believe that the directions printed on the ballot are pretty clear. Mark only once, do not tear the ballot. These are examples of valid ballots. Any marking that the counters decide is unambiguous is an unambiguous expression of the voter's intent is valid. Fill in the circle, X, or a check mark, circling the word, all are valid. The top two mark yes, and the bottom two mark no. These are invalid ballots. The first one is invalid because both choices are marked. The second one is torn. The third one is ambiguous. On the one hand, there is a single mark on the no. On the other hand, a strikeout in common usage means to delete or remove. My ruling is the ballot marked in such a manner is invalid. My copy of Robert's Rules is more than an inch thick. It is simply not possible to take into account all of the possible motions and situations that occur in just a few pages. State law gives the moderator the responsibility for making rulings on such matters as things come up. However, this is your meeting. State law also gives the voters at the meeting the ability to appeal and overrule any decision the moderator may make. If you disagree with a ruling, come to the microphone and raise a point of order. The meeting then has the opportunity to vote on the ruling. So, I request a motion that the school district vote to adopt the rules for the meeting as proposed by the moderator. Second, motion by Mr. Guillen, seconded by Mr. Harris. Is there a discussion on the rules? Seeing none, all in favor of adopting the rules as proposed, please raise your cards. Thank you. All opposed? And the ayes have it. We had an election yesterday, and several races were uncontested and several races were contested. So I am taking the liberty of reporting all of the results on all of the contested election. So for the 3-year term of selectmen, Maureen Masterson got 437, Seth Simonian 165, Peter Band 583, Mark Ledoux 622. This was a vote for two, so the winners were Peter Band and Mark Ledoux. For the 1-year term, the top 3 vote getters were Susan Benz at 399, Paul Armstrong at 386, and David Belanger at 179. This was just a single winner here, which was Susan Benz. Trustee of the Trust Fund, Warren Coulter at 482, Chris McBean at 248. So Warren Coulter won that one. SB2, Hollis voted 426 yes, 581 no. Brookline voted 587 yes and 269 no. The total was 1013 yes and 850 no. This requires a 60% vote to pass, which would be 1,118, and it didn't make it. The next election that will be coming up will be the presidential primary, probably next February, but that's up to the Secretary of State. Every time we have a primary, there are some voters that show up that says, oh, I'm not registered a Democrat, I'm positive I was undeclared. Unfortunately, what's on the checklist pertains. So if you're not sure how you were registered or you want to change your party affiliation, you have 9 months to do so. Simply go to the, people forget, simply go to the town clerk's office, and the town clerk or the deputy clerk will be happy to assist you in adjusting your party affiliation. Tonight is the Hollis School District meeting, and then the last meeting in the sequence is this Saturday at 10 o'clock in the morning in the high school gym. We have 10 articles on the warrant. Article 1 is a 3-year collective bargaining agreement with the Hollis Education Association. That's the teachers. The second is the first year of a 3-year agreement with the Hollis Education Support Staff Association. That's the paras and all of the other staff members. Article 3 is design development of the renovation of the barn at the SAU. Article 4 is the SAU budget, which will be done by secret ballot. Article 5 is a maintenance trust fund for the SAU building, and Article 6 is a maintenance trust fund for the school buildings. Article 7 is to create a special education expendable trust. Article 8 is to create a contingency fund for the school year. Article 9 is a housekeeping article to allow the district to access catastrophic funds for special education. Article 10 is the school budget, and Article 11 is any other business. Mr. Corey.
I'd like to thank our school board, our budget committee, our administration, our teachers and staff, and you, the citizens of Hollis, for attending tonight and supporting our schools. When constructing this budget, which has been supported by the school board and the budget committee, our building administration and SAU leadership reviewed all aspects of the Hollis district. During our process, we examined our capital improvements request, our staffing levels, our technology infrastructure, as well as our building infrastructure. The operating budget and warrant articles presented tonight allow us to maintain our class sizes while continuing our expanded programming put in place over the last few budget cycles. This budget also increases our interventions in math and reading while enhancing our opportunities in environmental science. By supporting the articles presented tonight, you will allow the Hollis District to continue to be one of the premier school districts in New Hampshire. Your past and future support is greatly appreciated. I thank you on behalf of the students of Hollis, and again, thank you for attending.
Mr. Guillen.
Thank you. I have a brief preamble to the articles to kind of give an overview of town economics and so forth. Some of these slides I realize are quite dense with numbers. I'm not going to read them all off. Just hit some of the high points. Town of Hollis, I thought we had a laser pointer. Yeah. About 7,800 people here in town. That's been steady for the last 10 years or so, but has grew in the first 10 years of the decade. About 3,000 households. Median household income is about $126,000. Our aggregate property value, the tax base, is $1.349 billion. That was up significantly, almost 12% from last year, but something to keep in mind, every 5 years is a revaluation. So in other years, we might typically see a change of an increase of 0.25% or 0.5%. The large increase is due to that revaluation. Average single-family home value after the revaluation was $457,000. You'll see the warrant articles, the tax impact. One of the figures that will be provided is the effect on a typical house. And then finally on this slide, the average tax bill this past year was about $9,900, a 3.5% increase from last year. Where am I pointing? Some information on enrollments. You can see a trend going back to 1998 on enrollment in the Hollis schools. We had a peak right around the turn of the century, around 866, a significant drop. We've been in a plateau for some years. Currently, in this school year, we had 671 at the time that this presentation was done. The administration's forecast for next year is a slight dip of 665, but then you can see that our projection, which is we received from NESDEC, an organization that does exactly this, increases to about 800. All right. I don't believe I think we had this at the public hearing. This is just a breakdown of the employees. I'm not going to go through all of this. The important point to take from this slide is these two groups that are bracketed on the margin. The first two are the teachers. That's the first contract we're going to talk about tonight, the Hollis Education Association. And then in these next four groups, the classroom support, the special ed support, school admin support, and maintenance and custodial, They make up the other collective bargaining unit that has a contract we'll consider this evening. All right. This slide depicts two data series. The first, the yellow line, is the staff, and the second, the columns, are the enrollment, very much like what we saw on the slide 2 slides ago. You can see here around 2008 in this area, there was a significant divergence. Staff was growing dramatically and enrollment was starting to tail off. Over time, those trends corrected, if you will, and now you can see this gentle upswing in enrollment is mirrored by this gentle upswing in the staff. All right, this slide takes a little orientation. This is the Hollis School District has educational specs for many things. One of them is for the classroom size, and it's specified at different levels. A classroom, I don't remember the specific specs, but for example, kindergarten might be 18 students in a class, 6th grade might be 23 students. What this does is shows where the class sizes have been in relation to those education specifications. Unlike many graphs, the zero axis is at the top here, and these columns kind of hang down. And what that shows is how far below the education specs each of those grade levels is at. So in the coming year, projected with the number of classroom sections and the administration's projection for enrollment at each class level, you can see that we are in kindergarten, 2 students per classroom below ed spec, 2 below in 1st grade. Thing to keep in mind with the number of class sections is you can't have 4.3 sections of 1st grade, or, you know, it's a step function. You have to have whole classes. So in order to satisfy our ed specs, we often wind up with these numbers that hang down a little bit below the ed spec. Okay, this chart shows on an inflation-adjusted basis the cost per pupil. This is a number that is generated by the state of New Hampshire. It is not going to match up to anything that's in your town report or any of our local documentation. They have a slightly different method for calculating this. The takeaway here is, again, this is inflation-adjusted. Since 2003, our cost per pupil has gone up almost 56% after inflation. So, you know, we have made a significant investment in the schools. All right, 10% rule. There's one number on here that really matters. There's the RSA that governs the budget committee enacts a 10% rule. And what that is there's an upper limit on the amount of money that we as a meeting can appropriate or vote to spend in the coming year. It's 10% of an adjusted number, and it's almost $1.3 million. We'll keep track of that. I think it's unlikely we're going to get amendments on the floor that are going to increase our spending by $1.3 million. But if we do, we'll call it out and make a recommendation on it. All right. A lot of numbers here. I struggle with whether to show this one. It's pertinent information, but it's a lot of detail. The operating budget here, I'm just going to talk about the percent changes. The operating budget went up 4.7%. That's a little bit misleading because some warrant articles, for example, collective bargaining agreements, they move into the operating budget as soon as they're passed. So a better year-over-year comparison is an increase of about 4.2% here, not 4.7. The warrant articles went up dramatically, 41%, but again, we have a number of new things we're going to consider this year. We've got 2 collective bargaining agreements. There was only one last year, one-year agreement. The SAU assessment is going up $53,000. The school maintenance trust proposed to go up $30,000 because of the number of projects that have been identified. There's a new special education trust that is proposed for establishment, and the Barnes study that the moderator mentioned in his overview of the warrant articles. Nope. Coming down, the other important number here I refer folks to is the very bottom line, the 7.1%. This 8.8% is, again, a bit misleading because this retained state tax is a tax. It's on all our tax bills. We pay it. And what the state does is they move it from one line item where it's a tax and it goes to another line item where it's a credit as state aid. So the point being is if this tax, the retained state tax goes down 2.4%, we've got to make that up in this rate. So the combined number is the one we want to look at, the 7.1%. So that entire slide is distilled into this line item. The prior slide is right here. So we see the effect of the town. This slide has been updated with the actions of the co-op meeting last week. So I'll update it again tonight with the actions at this meeting, and then Saturday we'll view it again at the town. One point I want to make on this slide actually relates to the town increase. This got a lot of airplay around the co-op meeting and on social media about the size of this increase. The increase percentage is kind of inflated. What happened is last year at tax rate setting time, you'll see in warrant articles we propose using unassigned fund balance, which is accumulated unspent tax revenue and other revenues. The selectmen voted in the town to spend $500,000 of that unassigned fund balance to reduce the tax effort. Had they not done that, had they not returned $500,000 of our taxes, this rate would have been, I think, 37 cents higher last year. You would have paid 37 cents more on your rate, and this change would only be 7%. So more than half of this change is, I would characterize as artificial because the selectmen returned that money last year. Moving down overall, when you have all the effects of the various entities, we are forecasting a rate increase of about 8.9%. I think I'm getting close to the end of my slides here. This is a slide that depicts how your property tax bill is spread across the taxing entities. So we have the town, the Hollis School District, the co-op, and the county. First thing, well, I don't know if it's the first thing you'll notice, but something worth noticing is the school district, the Hollis School District, which we're here to talk about this evening, is relatively flat. Over this entire period, it consumed 36% of our tax bill and has stayed pretty steady, and it's at 35% in this projected coming year. Same with the county, it's 6%, now it's at 5%. The two movers are the town has increased and the co-op has decreased. The co-op has come down, that's a real decrease, driven largely by the shift in the enrollment percentage of Brookline and Hollis. At the start of this graph, the left margin in 2006, the split was about 61% of co-op students were from Hollis, 39% were from Brookline, 61-39. Over here, it's 51-49. It's almost even right now in the co-op. And as a result, our taxes, the portion of our taxes that are needed to fund the co-op have gone down significantly. On the town side, that increase is driven by spending on our roads, public safety, and employee benefits. Health insurance and the New Hampshire retirement system have grown dramatically. Also, we've seen a significant decrease in town revenue over that period. And I think this is my final slide. Again, there's always a great deal of interest in where tax rates have moved. We've got two lines here. The first is the nominal or the current dollar bill for 15 homes that we've tracked for 25 years now. And you can see the yellow line has increased. A significant portion of that increase is the effect of inflation over the last 25 years. When you remove that effect, you get the blue line. And as you can see here, 25 years ago, the typical the tax bill for these 15 tract homes, which were selected to be representative of housing in Hollis, were just under $5,700. Today, it's $5,200. So we've actually seen a decrease in real dollar taxes in Hollis over the last 25 years. And I believe that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Article 1, to see if the Hollis School District will vote to approve the cost items included in the 3-year collective bargaining agreement reached between the Hollis School Board and the Hollis Education Association for the 2019-2020 2020 to 2021 and 2021 to 2022 school years, 2020, which calls for the following increase in professional staff salaries and benefits at the current staff levels. For the fiscal year 2019 to 2020, $196,649. For the 2020 to 2021 year, $220,879. And for the fiscal year 2021 to 2022, $223,724. And further, to raise and appropriate the sum of $196,649 for the fiscal year 2019 to 2020 school year, such sum representing the negotiated increase over the 2018 to 19 salaries and fringe benefits. The school board recommends this appropriation 400. The Budget Committee recommends this appropriation 800, and the estimated tax impact is 11 cents a thousand. Moved by Tammy Fareed, seconded by Amy Kellner. Mr. Mann.
Advance this, Drew.
Just those two buttons and the red one's a laser.
All right. Oh, there's the article. All right. So what I'd like to do is walk through a couple of things before we get into the agreement itself. I wanted to walk through some terminology, just so people understand a couple things about this, because there is some technical aspects to it. You will hear me refer to something called a salary table or a salary schedule this evening. Basically, that salary table is an array of salaries organized vertically by years of experience or steps, and horizontally by credentials or lanes. Every cell on the table increases vertically as well as horizontally by a certain percentage. Vertical step movement awards teachers for their experience, and horizontal lane movement awards a teacher for their earned credentials or educational hours that they spend at their craft. Teachers on step may traverse or move vertically or horizontally on the table annually. Teachers off step, we refer to off step, is teachers that are previously traversed through that table over the years of their employment in the district. The other item I did want to talk about, and just make sure folks understand, there will be a term that we use called normalizing, or to normalize the table. What that essentially is a method by which we address problems that we have identified with the table itself and how salaries progress. The current salary table progresses at this point very randomly and inconsistently, and we as a bargaining unit with the teachers identified that as a problem. So we wanted to spend time on that. The inconsistency, but in general, the way the table is now, it's roughly, salaries progress roughly at about 3.5%. The inconsistency around the salary progressions, as I said, was a problem that we worked on through our negotiation efforts. So that's pretty much what normalizing means. So from there, we'll get into some of the details of the agreement. As the article calls out, it is a 3-year agreement from 2020 to 2022. The salary in the first year, what we do is we go ahead and we're normalizing the table. We're removing that progression, that randomization in the table. So we took it from what used to be around 3.5%, and we regenerated all the salaries and made them progress at 3%. All the folks on the step table, on that new normalized table, can now progress as normal in year 1. And folks at the top step may move off, what we say, move off the table or become off step folks. So, as they're kind of, traversing through. In year 2, we normalize the table again, we take those progressions from a uniform 3% progression to a 2.8% progression. Then we adjust that table. Every one of the salaries on that table, we adjust it up by 1.5%. And then again, we have the folks that are on the table allowed to move forward like they would normally. And again, folks at the top of the step may move off the step. In year 3, no more normalization. We're at the point where the district wants to be with how the salaries progress. We do, however, adjust that table by 2.5% for all the salaries on that table. And then again, the folks on the table may progress on that table, and folks at the top of the step, again, may move off the table in that year. This table in blue here addresses our folks that are off step, and how we address them over year 1, 2, and 3 is based on a credential-based adjustment, and those adjustments are go to the base salary of our teachers and become their new salary base. So for our health insurance, we made no changes to the health insurance, so there's really no cost impacts there from a health insurance perspective. We did look at our longevity award. This is a cash award that is not an increase to the base salary, but is granted on a 5-year anniversary only. So it progresses just as you see it there. So it begins at year 15 on the 15th year. Depending on your credentials, you will receive a longevity award, so forth when you reach year 20, 25, and 30. From a management right perspective, just reiterating around the normalization, which was removing that inconsistency in how we compensate our teachers. We eliminated a stipend, which allows more fine-tuning of professional development and teacher committee work. We structured our salary and longevity based on master credentials, and we fixed and clarified existing contract language, improving the district's position and our operations. This is just a summary of the cost breakout. The salaries across the top are from fiscal year 20, 21, 22, totaling $657,352. We did added some nurse certifications for $2,000 in each year, totaling $6,000. The longevity changes progress over the 3 years as shown here for a total of $16,900. In year 1 of the contract, by removing the stipend, we do save the district about $39,000. And as I said, there's no really health insurance impacts. So that's where we got the numbers for the warrant article that you saw that Drew covered. So the $196,649 in year 1, the $220,879, the $223,724, totaling $641,252. And I think that is all I have. Oh, this is for you.
Is there discussion on Article 1? Seeing none, if you are in favor of Article 1, please raise your cards. Thank you. All opposed, raise your cards. And the ayes have it.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out.
Wait. It's my turn still.
I can't say hi to my friends.
Article 2, to see if the Hollis School District will vote to approve the cost items included in the 3-year collective bargaining agreement reached between the Hollis School Board and the Hollis Education Support Staff Association for the 2019 to 2020 school year, which calls for the following increases in support staff salaries and benefits at the current staffing levels. For the fiscal year 2019 to 2020, $51,240. And further, to raise and appropriate the sum of $51,240 for the fiscal year, such sum representing the negotiated increase over the 2018 to 19 salaries and fringe benefits. The school board recommends this appropriation 400. The budget committee recommends this appropriation 800. The estimated tax impact is 3 cents a thousand. Moved by Tammy Fareed, seconded by Mike Harris. Ms. Fareed.
Good evening again, everyone.
Do you want that or?
How does,
It's these two.
okay, thank you. The Hollis School District currently is operating under a 1-year agreement with the Hollis Education Support Staff Association, which covers our custodians, secretaries, paraeducators. Then that contract ends June 30, 2019. That agreement was established over the last year in order to try out, so to speak, a significant reconfiguration of the job categories and reporting requirements for the district's paraeducators, which constitute a little more than half of the membership of HESA. The district and HESA membership have been satisfied with those changes, and that gave us a solid foundation for pursuing the agreement we bring before you tonight. The HESA membership has voted to ratify this agreement. The Hollis School Board has voted unanimously to recommend it to our fellow taxpayers, and we're very happy to present it to you tonight and hope you can support it. Oh, I have to do this. Cool. So as you can see on the slide, the steps awarded. I want to explain that step table a little further than Rob did, which is the steps are a year-over-year function, as he said. They are not guaranteed. They are negotiated. In addition, many years, most years, we award additional percentages over those steps depending on negotiations. During the worst of the recession, there were no increases. Different economics produce, and different circumstances produce different negotiated outcomes. So in this particular contract, it's a 3-year contract. We agreed to include the step increases each of the 3 years. We made a table adjustment of 0.5% for those people on the table. That is, they're progressing year over year. They haven't been with us long enough to go off this table yet. And then for the 3 years, for FY20, 3% increase for the off-step staff, 3% for the FY21, and 3.5% for FY22. I have to do this. I got used to watching these instead of... Yeah, so as you can see, it's a 3-year agreement. We had no change in health insurance. So what we have in the contract so far and have maintained without changing is a cap on premiums. So the district pays into staff premiums at different rates for different, single, 2-person family. And this year there have been no changes in the caps that we spend on. There have been no changes in the insurance policy that we negotiated into for the entire membership a couple of years ago, which we're still very happy with and which we believe our staff is also content with. In addition, we gained many what's called management rights. These are goals the district had for our agreement, and we feel that we achieved what we were after. Again, an eye chart. So as you can see, I hope, securing reduction in forced staffing definitions, we found that there are years when we have to do what you might call a layoff, but in contract language, I guess it's called reduction in force. And we found that some of our definitions were too open to interpretation. And we were able to gain agreement over securing some of those interpretations so that, for example, if we had used the old language, we might be in the position of wanting to reduce in force a custodian, but a paraeducator would have been the most recent hire we might be forced to reduce through the para that we didn't want to do. So we strengthened that kind of language. There are several spots that we felt needed shoring up, and the membership agreed. So that was an excellent clarification there. Program pay for the summer, that's off, it's not within this contract, and we were able to secure that as a separate matter. Transferring responsibility to non-para educators for tracking their coverage. If you don't work in the buildings, you don't realize how our support staff flexes like the matrix. They fill gaps, they cover absentees, they cover teachers who have to go this and that, they cover each other, and all of that is tracked because we pay differentials when someone works above their pay scale, literally. And it had been a massive administrative operation on the SAU staff, and this past year, the one-year contract that we're in, part of that reconfiguration was the paras, was to see if we could successfully shift the burden of recording that information onto the employee who's experiencing it. And so far that's been very effective, and so the rest of the membership is now under that kind of agreement as well. We clarified and secured some of the definitions around, as you can see, Family and Medical Leave Act, some of the ITIP. I think it's kind of obvious that we just had a lot of language we felt we wanted to strengthen, and the union was able to agree with us, and that was just great. Contract is not Samburnized. Samburnized means that, as with the teacher's contract or the professional staff, you voted, thank you very much, for securing all 3 years in one vote. So next year and the year after, those subsequent years will be in the operating budget warrant article that you'll see. In this case, because we did not Samburnize, next year you'll see an article for the second year of this contract as an independent vote for you to vote on. You can only vote it up and down. You can't change the amount, but that's how that works when it's not Samburnized. These are the 3 years, each of the totals that you see for the contract. I've got numbers on the table I didn't bring up here with me, but the 51,000, 50,000, 55,000, these are very much within the previous 3 years of contractual agreement with the support staff. We haven't moved very much from those same 50 or so $1,000 numbers. Let me see where we are. And aside from a few other very small matters, that is my presentation for the evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. Is there any discussion on Article 2? Seeing none, all in favor of Article 2, please raise your cards. Thank you. All opposed, please raise your cards. The ayes have it. Article 3, to see if the Hollis School District will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $64,600 to create the design development of the proposed renovation primarily of the School Administrative Unit 41 barn and secondarily of the associated building at 4 Lund Lane, and to provide estimated costs for additional energy savings projects in the school buildings. This is a special warrant article pursuant to RSA 32:3, Roman numeral VI, paragraph D. The school board recommends this appropriation 300. The budget committee recommends this 800. The estimated tax impact is 4 cents a thousand. Moved by Tammy Fareed, seconded by Amy Kellner. Mr. Mann.
So some key items here for Article 3 is that the Hollis School District owns and maintains the property at 4 Lund Lane. The education and administrative demands continue to increase. The space and storage challenges continue to grow. The district priority is to keep this property occupied by ensuring the relevancy and suitability for the educational demands placed on our administration. The deliverables from such a study would be to provide thorough examination of options that we might undertake on the structures located at Forlun Lane. We would be looking to scope, scale, and cost the project, or any project that that comes out of this kind of an examination. We would like to have generate the complete set of design and construction documents that can be used for going out for bid and getting precise cost on elements of the project, and retain some of the energy project professional services and expertise that would assist us to finish some of the last items on the energy product that we largely completed on the primary school and the upper elementary school. This is the cost breakout for the design and construction documents relating to the architectural, structural, mechanical, and electrical plans, and also the $5,100 there for that energy product professional services. So that gets you, adding that all up, that gets you to the $64,600. And that's it.
Is there any discussion on Article 3? Mr. Garuba,
For the energy.
name and address, please.
Oh, sorry. Joe Garuba, 28 Winchester Drive. I have a question about the energy portion of this article.
Yes.
Specifically, are we looking at the lowest cost alternatives? Is this, it says energy savings. Is that considering all types of energy options, or is that restricted to certain types?
Yeah, so it doesn't introduce any new technologies. What it does is retain those professional services of folks that were close to the project, because there's some elements that we have yet to fix or complete. So they would be there to help us continue and guide us through completing that final stage.
Okay, so then I think I misunderstood entirely.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the energy portion of this was to come up with the energy solution for the barn building, but what you're explaining is that this is to complete the energy work that we've already started at the upper elementary.
That's correct, the $5,100, right. And any sort of energy or anything that would pertain to the Forlun Lane, we would be seeking to roll that into the project plan as part of the examination of the property and what the experts can tell us about how to go forward.
So considering that this is related to the work at HPS and Hughes, what specifically is left unfinished that we need to go back and look at?
Yeah, or either Mr. Corey or can speak to that. They were very close to the project execution.
There are what I'll call three elements. The first one is the internal lighting. We weren't able to change that over due to cost constraints because cost escalated over the 2-year period. The second component, as we went through the project, we found some areas where the insulation was never properly installed. So there's probably about, call it 2,000 square feet of insulation that needs to be blown in. And the third piece is escaping me right now. Oh, it is we have some rooms that were not able to get their own heat source air pumps. So we're working with the Mitsubishi who makes those to see if there's some way that we can coordinate some different mechanisms to address those classrooms.
Okay, so the things that you talked about seem like, they don't seem like design-related things, like replacing the lights. It sounds like you know what you need to do to replace the lights. It doesn't seem like a design consultant's needed for that. It sounds like what you're looking for is funds to replace the lights. That's like a capital expense, right?
No, because the new lights that would be coming in are much more efficient. The design is exactly where the lights would go, because you'd be reducing the number of lights in classrooms as well as in the corridors.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Chris Opelka, Moore Hill Road. I have a couple of questions. What is the age of this building? The building and the barn, because they could be two different ages.
It's approximately a circa 1850, and I believe the barn is at or around that as well, yeah.
Have you had a structural engineer look at the barn?
Yes.
Not an architect, a structural engineer?
We actually had a barn expert from New Hampshire who does nothing but barn projects across the state, and he provided the board with a report that stating basically the barn is very much structurally sound at this point. One of the things I learned is because the barn no longer houses animals or has animal waste, it erodes the foundation, because that heat generated from the animals actually is what keeps that foundation solid. So if we were to do nothing in the next few years, the barn will eventually, you'll see the walls bow out and the barn will come down.
Or get some more animals.
Well, we have bats, we have raccoons, we have skunks, we have plenty of animals. It doesn't facilitate work in the office too well.
So he recommends doing something, in essence. Is that what you're saying?
The recommendation that it's much more cost-effective to save the barn and do some minor rehabs to the building than to rip it down and rebuild.
What about looking at the actual house? Because it's 18 what?
Correct. As part of this project, we will upgrade the bathrooms that we use currently because they are what I'll call family bathrooms as opposed to commercial bathrooms. And there'll be some minor adjustments internally. But this will allow us to gain the space as well as to get all of our storage out of the attic. The main reason this started is the load of paper and requirements that we have to keep legally can no longer be housed in the attic.
Is there any other form of storage for your paper? Can it be digitized and come into the 21st century?
We actually have started that process, but that's a very cumbersome process. And we're presently required to keep a wide variety of payroll records and that. Our basement in the barn is not conducive to supporting storage in that area, so that's why it's presently in the attic.
Because I would hate to have a fire with all the paper,
Agreed.
And is this going to be done in phases? Do you have any inkling of cost?
I would hate to put out a number today because what I saw in the Hollis Primary School project is how quickly numbers escalate when the economy is moving along and the construction market is booming. But there will be a number of options presented, including phasing it. The most immediate need, honestly, is to raise it up, put a foundation in, and that will increase its life expectancy by tenfold.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, sir.
Brandon Buteau, Buttonwood Drive. A little follow-up, I guess, on that. I'm a little confused about the process that's going to be going through here. So you're going to have a thorough evaluation of all the options, and then is there going to be some down select amongst those options before you generate construction documents and all the documentation, or are they going to have documents for all the options that are going to be used to evaluate what the costs of the different options are before we decide amongst the options, or how, tell me more about what the process is.
Sure. They're starting with a feasibility study, which we did phase one, which was is it worth saving the barn or is it something to be ripped down? So that has been done. The money that we'd be allocating here is for the architect and his team, the engineers, and those folks to come in, meet with the SAU folks, discuss with the school board, and kind of go over what our needs are. Once our needs are described as far as spaces and what needs to be done, they will give us, I would say, some preliminary suggestions or drawings. And then working with the school board, we would select what we believe is the best model. That model would be put forth for construction drawings with the goal of bringing that to public forums like we did with the energy project so that people could understand what would be happening, and then a potential warrant article, whether it's phased or the entire project, March of 2020.
Okay, so would there be an opportunity for public input on selection amongst the available options, other than just, the school board on its own deciding, no, we think this is the best option and we're going to take that to the public?
No, we would bring it to the school board, and then we would bring it to public forums.
Okay.
And at least show people these are the options, this is what we're looking to choose, and here are our reasons. But as we've learned many times, sometimes people in the audience have a suggestion that we just didn't see. Mm-hmm. And it works out very well to incorporate that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, sir.
Hi, Tom Jokerst, Long Hill Road. My question is around the energy project, and just curious with the work that's been done. One, with the project design, what kind of return on investment were we expecting? And based on what's been done, could you share a little bit of what we're seeing so far this year and what we still expect to come from the remaining parts of the project?
Sure. The main pieces that were done is both schools had solar panels put on their roofs. Basically, right now, the electrical costs are supported through those solar panels. What we're paying are what I would call just demand charges, and we're actually looking at ways to solve those issues with this $5,100. We wrapped the primary school. We went from an insulation value of probably, in some areas, in the single digits to basically close to 40 for the whole building now. That has provided us a much better educational environment. We eliminated 1950s electrical panels, the original to the building, and all our wiring and tech has been upgraded. We installed all new windows. We put new unit ventilators on the roof so we get that proper airflow, which didn't exist when the buildings were built. So there have been a number of things done. We put TVs in both buildings, and we track our energy uses daily. So we use it for educational lessons for the kids, and it's available for the community if you'd like to go on. It's there every day. The pieces that would be talking about the classroom lights and the hallway lights are significant changes. We're dealing with outdated light bulbs, and moving to an LED would be a much more efficient form. Mm-hmm. And then those last couple areas, one area primarily is up at Hughes that we discovered that would allow us to really seal that building better as well.
Okay, I appreciate the detail. Can you speak at all to project over-delivering, under-delivering based on its design return? Or as expected?
I would say I'm very pleased.
Okay.
When you envision a project, you don't necessarily know what it's going to look like, but I think the way the building, first of all, the primary school fits within the historical district, and then to get energy savings above that. And in a lot of ways, we looked at it as a cost savings from a budget standpoint, but what we're really seeing is the educational benefits for the students that are in there every day.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Further discussion on Article 3? Seeing none, all in favor of Article 3, please raise your cards. Thank you. All opposed? And the ayes have it. Now, this is a SAU budget vote, and by law, it is a secret ballot vote. When we get to it, take your voting card to the ballot clerks in the back. They will stamp it and give you a ballot. The ballot boxes themselves are in the back corner there. We will recess briefly, give everybody a chance to put their ballot, mark their ballots and put it in the box, and then we will resume while the counters are counting the results. Article 4, shall the district vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $534,271 as the Hollis School District's portion of the SAU budget of $1,719,314 for the forthcoming fiscal year. This year's adjusted budget of $1,691,711 with $525,670 assigned to the school budget of this school district will be adopted if this article does not receive a majority vote of all the school district voters voting in this school administrative unit. The school board recommends this appropriation 300. The budget committee recommends this appropriation 800. The estimated tax impact is 30 cents a thousand. Moved by Tammy Fareed, seconded by Amy Kellner. Mr. Mann.
So anybody who has been attending in the past the Hollis annual meeting knows that I refer to this article as the chocolate or vanilla article. And the reason why I call it that is that this is unlike all the other articles that we have in our warrant. You may choose the proposed budget that we have or the adjusted budget. The budget numbers cannot be amended or anything tonight as like the other warrant articles. Hence the reason chocolate or vanilla, you got A or you got B. It is a ballot vote, like Drew pointed out, and the votes are tallied from votes that have been taken in the co-op district and in Brookline at their regular election day voting. The proposed budget was created by an appointment of a committee of the SAU Governing Board. That committee consisted of board members and budget committee members and the like. They brought forward their proposed budget, and it was reevaluated by the entire SAU Governing Board. And we believe that this properly funds our administrative organization going forward.
Is there any discussion on Article 4? Seeing none, we are ready to vote by secret ballot. So show your cards to the ballot clerks in the back. The polls are now open on Article 4. We will continue with business while the counters count. Article 5, to see if the school district will vote to raise and appropriate up to the sum of $23,970 to be added to the previously established maintenance fund for administrative and associated structures at 4 Lund Lane in Hollis, map 56, lot 2, from rental proceeds and unexpended maintenance funds to be received from SAU 41, available for transfer on July 1, 2019. The school board recommends this appropriation 300. The budget committee recommends this appropriation 800. The estimated tax impact is 0. Moved by Tammy Fareed, seconded by Amy Kellner. Mr. Mann.
So just a couple key items here to just cover briefly. So because we own that property, we also charge and receive rental funds for that space. The maintenance fund itself, or the expendable trust, is actually acts like a savings account where it holds and carries forward funds that we receive from that rental income. The oversight of this fund is that major expenditures are proposed by the administration. The school board evaluates and presents any plans to the budget committee for their input. And then after we receive that, then the school board evaluates and makes the final approvals on any expenditures for projects around maintaining that property.
Is there any discussion on Article 5? Seeing none. Oh, wait.
You know
Sorry.
what? There is one more slide that covers the projects. Sorry, folks.
There's more.
Just this last one. So the opening balance on the account as it is today is $34,841. Of course, those funding proceeds of the $23,970 is that rental income I spoke about. So we have some proposed projects, interior painting and upgrades on the security system for $20,000. Ancillary tree and weed removal, rock shrub installs, things like that, $5,000, and some bathroom upgrades for $3,000. That would leave an ending balance in fiscal year 20 as $30,811, and that is truly the end.
Is there any discussion on Article 5? Seeing none, if you are in favor of Article 5, please raise your cards. Thank you. If you are opposed, raise your cards. Seeing none, the ayes have it. Article 6, to see if the school district will vote to raise and appropriate up to the sum of $120,000 to be added to the previously established school buildings maintenance fund from the Hollis School District's June 30, 2019 unanticipated revenues, unassigned fund balance, available for transfer on July 1, 2019. And further, to name the Hollis School Board as agents to expend from the previously named fund. The school board recommends this appropriation 300. The budget committee recommends this appropriation 800. This would have a foregone estimated tax reduction of 9 cents a thousand. Moved by Tammy Fareed, seconded by Amy Kellner.
Thank you. Let's see what this does. So as the slide shows you, this kind of maintenance fund is a trust fund, and it's something the state allows school districts to do as a way of retaining money we haven't spent at the end of a fiscal year in order to do long-term or significant projects. Prior to the laws allowing these kinds of funds, school districts couldn't retain any tax money at all at the end of a year and found it extremely difficult to plan for large expenses, capital expenses, long-term expenses. These, as you see, the purpose is a savings account, like I said, to carry forward funds. The funding is from the unreserved fund balance. So we bring a budget to you, you vote for it, it passes, we raise and appropriate the taxes. And at the end of the school year, different things happen throughout the year, and we often have a significant amount of the budget remaining, and some of that is returned to you as much as we can, but some of that we ask you to put into these kinds of trusts to allow us to do long-term planning so that we can be, responsible and prudent about very expensive projects that don't really fit well into annual operating budgets. Oversight, major expenditures proposed by the administration. The school board evaluates, presents plan to the budget committee, who question us rather thoroughly, and then we make final approval and bring that before you in a warrant article, which is what you see here. So here's the eye chart. Currently, the FY20 projected opening balance, what we have currently, is $82,000. The proposed funding out of the unassigned funds at the end of this fiscal year are $120,000, as you saw in the previous slide. I'll go through the projects with you. At the bottom, you'll see FY20 projects total cost, so that we'll add that up, and what we hope to have at the end, what we expect to have as a result at the end of FY20 is $83,000 balance in this trust. So the projects: fire alarm upgrades at the primary school, flooring in one of the rooms at primary school, the library carpet, which has served for many years, and for 2 years it has served as a construction site blanket. It needs replacing. We have some chairs that need to go, shades for the new windows. Our windows are amazing. The teachers love them, the kids love them, but sometimes we want to darken the room completely, and because they face south or east in the mornings, they need some darkening for projections or whatever else the teachers want to do. Cabinet replacements. The Munters unit. So those of you who are old timers know the Munters unit is this monumentally massive dehumidifier in the bowels of the upper elementary. It was installed in, was it 2010, to resolve a very bad mold issue. And the roof over it has aged, and we protect that thing like it's a racing stallion, because it's very expensive and it does a critically important job. So we've got a long-term plan that says this is the year, next year, is to replace the roofing over it, and that's what that's about. Stair treads, water heater at Hughes. It's a big thing in the basement that supplies the school, and it's sprung leaks and has been babied to the point that it really has got to be replaced. One of our budget committee members had asked, what about turning it into a propane heater, because we've got propane in the building now, but it would take so much plumbing that would be very, very expensive. So we just need to replace it as is. Bathroom flooring replacement, drinking water testing. There's nothing wrong with our drinking water. The state has created new legislation around mandated testing, and we expect it to be pretty substantially expensive, $5,000. We asked for it to go into the maintenance fund because it's a very significant hit to operations. So the total project costs are $119,058, and if that's how it all works out exactly as planned, we should have an $83,097 balance at the end of FY20. And I think that's all we've got.
Any discussion on Article 6? Seeing none, all in favor of Article 6, please raise your cards. Thank you. All opposed? And the ayes have it. I have the results of the vote on Article 4. In Hollis, that's the SAU budget. In Hollis School District, it's 91 in favor and 9 opposed. When I combine it with the votes in the co-op and the Brookline School District, the totals are 806 in favor, 491 opposed, and the SAU budget passes. Article 7, to see if the school district will vote to establish a special education expendable trust fund per RSA 198:20-C to be used for unanticipated special education expenses, and to raise and appropriate up to the sum of $25,000 to be put in said fund, with this amount to come from the Hollis School District's June 30, 2019 unassigned fund balance, available for transfer on July 1, 2019. Further, to name the Hollis School Board as agents to expend from this fund. Majority vote required. The school board recommends this appropriation 300. The Budget Committee recommends this appropriation 800. The estimated foregone tax reduction is 2 cents a thousand. Moved by Tammy Fareed, seconded by Amy Kellner. Ms. Fareed.
This is another trust fund, again, another savings account. Why do we need a savings account around special education? Special education is a very labor-intensive effort. It's mandated by federal and state laws. It allows us to provide equal access under the law to students who have identified disabilities. We don't identify them. They're identified by professionals who identify what we need to address and how we can best serve every student. Some students bring to us very, very substantial disabilities. They might move into the district in the middle of the year. They might be identified in the middle of the year. There could be a result of an injury or an illness. In any case, it's our obligation and our responsibility to ensure that whatever we can do to remove barriers to their learning, that is our job. If something happens in the middle of the year like that, a move-in or a new diagnosis, it can be a devastating blow to the operating budget. Despite the size of the budget, we operate very tightly. And this kind of trust fund, we have that similar thing in the co-op, and we have one in Brookline, and it's now Hollis's turn to ask the taxpayers to support this. Again, it will be funded from the unassigned funds at the end of the year that we haven't expended. And it would allow us to slowly but surely build up a little bit of a purse. We have a gentleman's agreement between the Budget Committee and the school board that we would cap it around, where does it say? We taught 280,000, you see at the bottom there of the slide, in order to cushion an unexpected and anticipated significant budget hit. You'll see later in the slide pack, in the warrant articles, there is an authorization to receive funds from the state that used to be called catastrophic aid. It's now called special education aid. That is for a very similar purpose. However, if we had such an expense suddenly occur, we would submit this to the state, and it could take as long as a year for the state to decide to reimburse us some percentage of the expense based on the state's decision. In the meantime, these things occur in the moment, and it can really handicap our operations. So this trust fund is a current year offset, a current year cushion. If we were to encounter such a situation and utilize this fund, again, by going through the process that we articulated before of bringing our need to the Budget Committee and getting their input, we would still submit to the state if it was appropriate, and the state might still return that kind of aid a year later. That money would not go into this trust fund. It would go back into the general fund and be a regular revenue source that you would see identified in our operating budget presentations. And if that resulted in unassigned funds at the end of the year, we might ask you to fund this continually, but it wouldn't be an automated thing or an invisible move. Yep. And that's that. Thank you.
Is there any discussion on Article 7? Seeing none, all in favor of Article 7, please raise your cards. Thank you. All opposed? And the ayes have it. Article 8, to see if the school district will vote to establish a contingency fund for the current year for unanticipated expenses that may arise, and further to raise and appropriate a sum of $95,000 to go into the fund, this sum to be raised by taxation. Any appropriation left in the fund at the end of the year will lapse to the general fund. The school board recommends this appropriation 400. The Budget Committee recommends this appropriation 800. The estimated tax impact is 5 cents a thousand. Moved by Tammy Fareed, seconded by Amy Kellner. Ms. Fareed.
So the contingency fund is very different from those previous funds that you saw. The previous funds are savings account. Money accrues in them based on your vote. The contingency fund lapses at the end of every fiscal year. The money, just like it says, goes back into the general fund, and we never see it again. And we have to ask you every single year for this money. It does allow us some wiggle room should things come up. This past year, we completely out of the blue in the late summer, we discovered that we were receiving 20 more kindergartners than we have ever received before. And we were in the crazy position of having to hire a kindergarten teacher post haste. That was not budgeted. And it's the first time in anyone's memory that we have actually accessed the contingency fund. Typically, it has gone back to the taxpayer 100%. But it played an important role in allowing us to provide the services that are expected of us legally and by the community without disrupting our other programs and operations. And that's what the contingency fund is. Thank you.
Is there any discussion on Article 8? Seeing none, all in favor of Article 8, please raise your cards. Thank you. You always count, Kathy. All opposed, please raise your cards. And the ayes have it. Article 9, to see if the school district voters will authorize the Hollis School District to access future year state and federal special education aid funds in the event that special education costs exceed budget limitations. This article is recommended by the school board 300, recommended by the budget committee 800. It has no estimated tax impact. Moved by Tammy Fareed, seconded by Amy Kellner.
So this is the article I alluded to earlier. State law requires that we ask the voters to vote to authorize us to receive that special aid, catastrophic aid that I talked about earlier. I'm not sure exactly why we have to do it, but we have to do it. So we hope you'll vote yes. Thank you. You know what? Wait. May I ask our attorney if he knows why?
Because they said so.
Good. Our attorney has spoken.
It's really simple. The general state law says that you can't expend funds beyond those that have been raised and appropriated by the legislative body. Any amount of revenue you receive that exceeds the amount that you've approved in your budget would violate that provision, so you have to get special authority to accept that revenue.
Is there any discussion on Article 9? Seeing none, all in favor of Article 9, raise your cards. Thank you. All opposed? And the ayes have it. Article 10, to see if the school district will vote to raise and appropriate a sum of $12,145,453 for the support of schools, for payment of salaries for the school district officials and agents, and for the payment of statutory obligations of the district. This appropriation does not include appropriations voted in other warrant articles. The school board recommends this appropriation 300. The budget committee recommends this appropriation 800. The estimated tax impact is $6.79 per thousand. Moved by Mr. Guillen, seconded by Mr. Mann. Mr. Guillen.
Thank you. The budget process kicks off in earnest in October. We work with the school board and the school administration and come up with a process we call guidance. I won't go through all the math, but in essence what happens is the budget committee considers macro factors, inflation, the economic condition in general, and we drill down all the way to local factors like projected enrollment, new educational program that is proposed by the administration. We put all those things together and come up with guidance essentially saying this is the operating budget that we want to see put forth at the annual meeting. The administration then goes back with the school board. There are multiple rounds internally with the administration and the school board. We review the budget twice in December and again in January with the school board. So a great deal of scrutiny. And at the end of the process, we came up with a budget that came in at just under $1,300 under the guidance that we set forth. So I would like to extend my thanks on behalf of the BudComp to the school board and the administration for helping us achieve that. So the first question that typically comes up is what are the staff changes in student-facing positions? And this summarizes those changes that would come forth in this budget. Due to increased enrollment at the kindergarten level, this budget would add a kindergarten teacher and a paraeducator. Due to educational programming, there's an additional special education reading teacher. The next two increases, a little complicated. A full-time equivalent, it can be a partial person. So 50% of somebody's time is half of an FTE. And in this case, the 0.5 math specialist and the 0.3 currently are one person. And what this budget will do was separate those duties, make that math specialist, the existing half of the person's time on math specialist, increase to one. So it's just an increase in salary. We're already paying benefits on that position. Same with the environmental specialist. An existing person who's getting benefits will add 30% of their time and work as an environmental specialist. In addition to the adds to staff, there are two reductions. One sixth grade teacher that was on a one-year contract. The current sixth grade class was kind of unusually large cohort that has passed through the Hollis School District. They'll be moving on to the co-op next year. And as a result, we don't need that capacity. And a reduction of a half a reading teacher as a result of retirement. What I'll touch on are the major dollar increases and major dollar decreases in the budget. Unfortunately, many of these are familiar: health insurance, retirement, and so forth, but we'll look at them. Health insurance went up $95,000. And again, I don't think I've touched on that in my remarks about guidance. That's another consideration. We look at external, non-controllable budget changes, things like increases in health insurance or increases in retirement. As the district employer, we have to pay the retirement portion, and we consider those in guidance so that we try not to allow those to crowd out educational spending on programs. So you see here the health insurance increased $95,000. We have a new bus contract this year, $66,000 increase. The salary for that reading teacher I mentioned on the previous slide. Some replacing of ongoing computer equipment came in at just over $44,000. And finally, retirement system contribution up $42,000. And just to give you a sense of magnitude, health insurance all in is over $1 million a year of the budget, and the retirement system is almost $1 million. So in contrast to the major increases, we have the major decreases. Additional computer equipment, this is supplemental equipment that did not make it to the final round of the school board and administration proposal in the budget. It's not the replacement of the ongoing equipment. Teacher lane changes, if you remember from Mr. Mann's remarks on Article 2, I think it was, the professional CBA. Lanes are movement horizontally across the pay table as a result of educational attainment, an advanced degree or additional relevant education hours. These numbers come as a result of the administration actually polling the teacher population to see who is expected to get a new degree or expected to complete one of those lane requirements. And it's believed that we'll see less expense there. General maintenance, those were some one-off expenditures last year that aren't being repeated this year in the budget. Contracted vision services, again, and physical therapy. Both those reductions, the final two here, are a result of student services looking at the specific student population and assessing needs and determining that we don't need to fund those activities at the level that was required last year. I believe that concludes my remarks. Thank you.
Is there any discussion on Article 10? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Ritu Alal, Cummings Lane. I support this article, voting yes. I just have a clarification question from the report. On page 3 of the report, the district report, on the top right hand, there's a chart that just shows the state average and the Hollis average for class size. And I just wanted to understand it better because as it states, and I don't know if you're able to pull that up here, but grades 1 and 2, the class sizes for the Hollis versus state is very similar. And then for grades 3 and 4, the average class size for the state is 17.7 students and Hollis is 19. And for grades 5 and 6, the state average is 16.2 and the Hollis average per class is 20, which is a pretty big difference. So I just wanted to see if someone could help me understand why that difference might be, and there might be a simple explanation, I just don't know.
Working on it.
Okay, thank you.
When we do our class sizes, we do it on the teacher to the students in their class. Many buildings and districts across the state take their overall teacher population and then divide that into the students to give you a number. We place the emphasis on that classroom teacher to the students in front of them, and we look at our specialists and our reading specialists and all those. We don't use those to reduce our class sizes.
So there's not a standardized way that they report that? Everyone can kind of do it their own way?
In many instances, yes. You know, so from a state perspective, whether it be the class sizes or sometimes even with the cost per pupil, it can be slightly off.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Garuba.
Joe Garuba, Winchester Drive. I'd like to speak in favor of this article. I want to thank the school board specifically for addressing the transportation problems that we've had in the past. I think I've gotten about 3 emails this week about buses running late. So thank you for making the effort to resolve that.
Further discussion on Article 10. Seeing none, all in favor of Article 10, please raise your cards. Thank you. All opposed? And the ayes have it. At this point, I would like to thank my assistant moderator, Jim Belanger, and the counters, as well as the ballot clerks and supervisors of the checklist who handle the material in the back, the school board, and the budget committee. These folks, most of them are unpaid, and most of the rest of them are paid not very much. So they work hard for you, the taxpayers, and the parents. So thank you very much. After the meeting, I can swear in Brooke Arthur, Carolyn Roy, Diane Levitt, Holly Babcock, Krista Whalen, Darlene Mann, and Tom Enright to your new positions. Article 11, to transact any other business. I hear a motion from Mr. Harris to adjourn. Second from Mr. Hyde.
Non-debatable.
Non-debatable. All in favor of adjourn, please raise your cards. Thank you. All opposed? We are adjourned.